Okay, this one I'm going to do because I keep seeing it's like I've been into psychology for a while. I've read a lot of psychology stuff, and although there's a lot of validity and great things in there, there's just stuff that's on a meta scale I find very annoying to see how it is, or at least I'm becoming more and more aware of how damaging some ideas can be, and how people tend to try to psychoanalyze things, or try to learn about psychology, but then actually, like for example, they would learn about some bias, but then report on it in some sort of biased way, where they are misapplying biases based on their own biases, which then cause biases on biases. It's like a recursive problem. It's some sort of loop. I don't know how to put it exactly, but like, what I'm going to draw a person so I can like maybe illustrate this in some way or another. What you'll see is, for example, let me draw the arms here, the body. So this is a person. Draw that pretty quickly. Tack, tack. I think one of the, I think the I've seen it in other things, but I think mainly the Dunningkruger effect really starts to annoy me because of the fact that it's very easily to misapply, or to have like a bias when you're thinking about the Dunningkruger effect. Like, this person might be I think one of the problems with that thing is that the biggest problem is that what does it mean to be competent in the first place? Like, the main misattribution that I found, I know people that are amazing, that are really amazing at what they do, but they don't get recognized by anything or anyone. I'm not talking about me here. I literally know people that are I'm not going to name names here, but like, I know a lot of people that are really good at what they do, and nobody really cares. Of course, I have an artistic background, so I know, you know, 3D modelers and painters and stuff like that. People that are really good, but the reason, I think it's also a part of the Dunning-Kruger effect to not be capable of recognizing whether or not another person is good in something or not. Paired measures. I'm going to. You can look at the Wikipedia page or something like that if you'd like to know more about what I'm talking about. But like, if you're thinking about like the main reason why I know this is because I myself used to not like certain types of art, or I think it's it has to do with the subjectivity thing, where art, for example, is subjective, which is like, you can have a very skilled manipulator, which you will see a lot in art schools and colleges, that are more geared toward educating con artists than they are geared at educating real artists. They use these biases of people that most people don't know or don't really know much about art. And so what they do is they isolate their victims from knowing more about art, or they try to the thing is with that is like there's super incompetent people that are competent in manipulation and using cognitive biases and whatever the fuck to the reason you have this modern art movement of like really crappy artists that are paid lots and lots of money is because of this simple fact that really skilled artists, really skilled people, unless they are so skilled and recognized within their field that you know, because everyone goes to that person because, you know, this is the main guru of the entire field, that if you want to know something about that thing and they have like a network and whatever, of course it in that case that works. But in a lot of cases, if you'd see, like for example, there are a lot of really masterful painters and drawers and whatever that wouldn't be, that are actually pretty small, but it's just because you don't know about them that they aren't very recognized, and they are really good at what they do. And the reason they are so good at what they do is because they invest all their time into getting good at what they do. But then other people, they're like mediocre, really bad artists, they don't invest into their skills. And so what happens with those people is they have so much time to lobby and like make and like bash and slander the, you know, the people, and just like they try to, oh, these guys are like elitist, and they make up like a bunch of bullshit in order to create this dynamic, like, oh, we are the counter movement, we are the people that are you know, against the established order, even though those people that there's like I think I have this bias in myself as well. I used to think if someone had 1 million views, that would be a great famous person with a lot of money, and they are like super amazing and they have so much followers, and really that doesn't really necessarily say much. There's people, I myself have like almost 3 million views on Flickr alone. I've had millions and millions of, if my analytics are to be correct, over the last 2 to 3 years, millions and millions of views. I am rather poor, and I have seen this in other people as well. And you can tell this by, if you go and look at quantum physics lectures, for example, you'd think that a lot of people watch those lectures because you open the first lecture and it's like, wow, it has 3 million views. But the problem with that is, like at lecture 25 there's 20,000 views, because the first video everyone clicks on because they're like, yes, I'm going to learn this thing. And because they think that they're gonna learn this thing, you know, then it's like, oh, I think that's where the Dunningkruger effect comes into play, because once they've seen the first part, they realize like, oh my god, this is way more complicated than I thought it was, and then they drop off. And so then at the end, no one is left, but you get this skewed interpretation of who's doing well and who is doing badly. You get this, and that's what happens is that the Dunning-Kruger effect has baked in it this idea that to know whether someone is good at something they do or not, you know, as I said, the problem with that is that whether someone is good or not is a value judgment in and of itself that often people you know, what's the word for it, accommodate or accredit based on attributes that actually don't have anything to do with their skills. I was watching a lecture, a thing about like some guy that was bitching about the Dunningkruger. I don't know where the video was anymore, but he was like ranting how he had like so many papers of being in Mensa, and he was so smart and he had so many certifications, and it's like the problem with that is that from my experience, what I see when people get their degrees, I know amazing people who have degrees that are really intelligent, that are really great, but that is not the majority of those people. Those people were already great before they went and got their degrees, were great before they went into college. And in fact, a lot of those people that I've seen, once they get their degrees, they get lazy. They think I have this degree means that I am highly competent, that I am very smart, this is a qualification of my amazingness, and they get lazy. They think I have this thing and now I am good enough. And I've seen a lot of people actually ruined by that thing because it takes away their drive. Now of course, if they need to get a job as well, and this is I don't want to generalize, and of course I'm talking about other people's biases. I have biases myself, so that's also something I want you to take into account. I am aware of that I'm currently speaking from my experience, and from not just from my experience, but also from the things that I've read and all the literature that I've read. But like I see this thing, and often there's this mismatch with how people perceive things and what's actually like there. Coming back to the point that I was making before, like some of those people, they would have been even more amazing without their certifications, of how competent they are. Like there's like this and I don't have a degree myself, so I don't want to bitch about people who have degrees. That's not my intention. That's not my. But I do see this weird thing. Of course, that's they have to market it as such. But I feel like in the modern day, that is really damaging and really for several reasons, because and I'm trying to verbalize what I'm trying to point out here is like, there's like, I almost feel like at this point, a lot of colleges, universities and such, they are losing their relevance. And what I'm seeing is that they, instead of actually teaching people, which has to do with the like going, of course, again, this is not like a generalization. There are amazing colleges, there are amazing lectures and such, but there's this uprise of the internet, and because of the uprise of the internet, there's a lot more competence. You see this in the media. They're trying to go like, oh, people are becoming more and more stupid with time because of the internet. It's like there's so much bogus out there. That is quite often just propaganda for some other cause, like for example for colleges and universities, which I believe are like losing their relevance, and instead of educating people, they use the money they get to lobby people. It's something that I'm sensing more and more lately. They try, instead of investing into education, they're just trying to lobby people out of existence, probably forming cartels, because because they can't handle the fact of how they are losing their importance via the internet. I really believe that in the coming decades or ages, like those things are going to have to close. Like they're a money-making machine. They try to pretend that they are not. They try to pretend that they are about something very different than what they are about, and they try to keep and establish their credibility based on something that I quite often, and one of the reasons that I'm saying this is because I'm myself have been looking for employees or people to work with, and then I get like messages of like, oh yeah, I can do this thing. Now of course I myself, like, I do this as well. Like I go to a person, it's like, I know that I can do this, I know that I can code and develop, and I have the experience. I might not know every single thing, but I know how to mishmash, and I've seen things throughout my life enough for me to know that if I go do that thing, of course I would have, there's still a learning curve, but I know that I can do it in time, or that I have the ability enough to learn more about that subject and relatively easy start doing that, even though there is going to be a curve where again the Dunningkruger effect, where it's going to go down and then back up. But it's like there's this over application and this thing where of the Dunningkruger effect, and there's this trying of institutions to discredit people and to I don't know how to state this properly. I want to do a long explanation and really see all the angles. I don't want to have this thing be a thing where I'm just purporting my opinion and then just one viewpoint and just like be the propagandist myself. I do want to take into account other things or other variables. Of course, I might not know other variables that other people know, and so we're again at this metacognitive idea of like there's so many things and so many situations and perspective and things that come into one thing that like people tend to very, very much oversimplify those things, and I think especially with the internet, like, why is society structured the way it is? Like, why would you even go to a college anymore? Can't you the purpose of a college is like teach someone something so they can then do a job. Why do you need to have that thing anymore? Why can't you just have them sit at home, instruct them on what they have to learn through the internet, and then give direct them towards a job or whatever, or and then you can still keep informing them as you go along through the internet, right? Like this thing where you have to go towards a thing and then learn about it and then you're done. That's over. Like the world is changing very, very rapidly. Like, I'm currently coming up with words for jobs that didn't even exist when I first tried starting to go to college. I'm learning so much stuff, combining them, reapplying them, and creating new stuff that I know that within a few years I'm going to be talking about things that didn't even exist 10 years ago, that didn't exist, that no one could have educated me for, that 10 years from then are obsolete or just a tiny minor discipline of some other thing that has been invented, and that like everything is becoming this continuous stream of information in such a rapid and fast-paced and high quality information that would have otherwise never met the average person that I really think there's like this that even like when talking about the Dunningkruger effect, that it's obsolete. What does it matter? What does that matter? Can't you just like, does that idea matter anymore? Like if I start something and I realize that I'm not that great at it, like I have all the information to learn it at my fingertips, then it's like just of like, oh yeah, then we're going to have to grind out a couple of months of learning this new thing and applying it to the things that I already know. And the reason you go towards the thing that you don't know everything about is usually because you've already had a hunch for you wanting to do that or need to learn that because of the other things that you have already learned. So reapplying something that you don't know that much about, there's like this, it's like usually you have a cognitive bias to be veered towards things that you already know. So or are already selectively focused, you know, your selective focus is pointed towards. So there is likely already a structure there that pointed you in that direction, right? You know, if you're a neurologist, you might not know everything about, you might be very specialized in the auditory part, but then for some reason you're like, oh, I want to learn something new, and I want to learn the visual part of the brain, more about that and how that interacts with the auditory part. And then you go into the visual part, and you're likely going to have ideas of how that works already, because of maybe you've already seen those things in one way or another, but you're not coming from a perspective where you don't know anything at all about a given subject, and maybe you're wrong in some areas about the visual part, or you'll realize that you have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff about the visual part, but you seldomly a person comes from a standpoint where they really don't know anything at all. And that's kind of the problem that I see quite a lot, and that like people try to, I also see that when people start doing something, there's this thing that when you start doing something new, people see you do something new and you're not that great at it, so they conclude you aren't good at this thing and you will never be great at it, and they don't care. Or you were good at something and you do something that isn't that great, and they're like, oh, you're maybe not that great as I thought you were, but you know, which prevents people from learning new things, and or try to hide it, and then after when they are great, then only then they start to share. But I think that's a very damaging concept, because peer review and peer criticism, or seeing how peers respond to something, is very beneficial in learning, and which is why I now continually place everything I'm doing online, because then I can know what people react to, I can see how other people react to things, and see where, and then I can get scrutiny. But that thing people are afraid of that thing, and that is not bad. Like you can, if people do that thing, then you can veer towards something else, and maybe they are wrong. It's not because someone says you are wrong that you are wrong. They might themselves be wrong, but you can also be wrong. And so this it's great, it's good to have, but people tend to really get mad about things they have concepts about, and things they want to have as you know, they want to purport that thing as the validity, because otherwise they would have to admit that they were wrong, and so that's that can be a problem. I think it's necessary in one way or another to address that stuff. I think I want to do a series about metacognition and how things on a meta scale, psychology. Yeah, I'm starting to think about teaching things, and the things that I know that I don't know. I might make mistakes. I already saw, like myself, I was doing a thing about humanoid robots or anatomy. I was playing with this idea. I want to do humanoid robots. So I already know the anatomy, so I just start, and of course I'm going to be making mistakes at the start, but I can recapitulate in the future, or do an update or whatever, and that's a lot more. I think that's a lot more healthy than being in this state where you are, you know, not doing anything because you think you're in this valley where you aren't as good as you think you are. That's how you learn. So I'm kind of slightly offended by that, even though I bought into it myself, and it's a valid thing, of course, but there's like this slight, not even slight, like a major underlying bias in this idea that's really obnoxious. Like this idea that people who aren't very great at something think that they're really great at something. I've never really experienced that myself in my life. I don't never have had that idea that I'm great at anything. I've had people say that about me. There's like a bias about people that maybe I have a bias of thinking that that's not true, but like there's a bias for people to misattribute such things. I've had that by a psychiatrist who said, like, you were saying that you were going to make it with your art already a couple of times, and I was thinking, like, I've never said that. I've never said that because I know that I for years have been thinking that I am not that good and I still have a lot to learn, but that I know how to get there and what the path trajectory is, because I've seen it in other people and how they do it, and I know that I know certain other things that then there's like pieces of the puzzle that need to come together, and that then only then, but of course I do misapply the timeline of how things go or whether or not things work out. I am at a point where I'm I wouldn't say pretty good. There's like things that need to be managed, but I don't need to think about human anatomy anymore to know the human anatomy. I might, like I was saying, I was making that series and I was pointing at the jawbone, which was wrong. This is not the jawbone, it's the cheekbone. But I do say it like a minute or two after that, like, oh yeah, the cheekbone, the jawbone, because I'm still because I've never taught the thing, and that's where problems start to arise. Like, for example, I do know that I can read German, that I can understand German, but then people would say, oh yeah, you say you're good at German. No, I'm not saying that I'm good at German or in any other language like Italian or Spanish. There's just, once you start to do something, like, for example, when it comes to linguistics or learning, you know, I know a lot of languages. I can understand a lot of languages, especially when they're spoken given on a certain subject. Like, for example, if I listen to a Polish lecture on quantum physics, I am more or less going to understand what they're talking about. Do I understand every single word that they're talking about? No. Am I going to be able to speak it? No. Am I going to be able to... I'm going to be able to read the text. I'm not going to, again, understand every word, but they're using words that are kind of more or less, you know, bastardized words, or that sound like quantoage, or whatever word. it is like kwantowiec to think that is quantum or Vežiš or something like that. That is like that's like almost like wetenschappen, or which of course if you're English you might not understand that, but there's like words that you can, once you know a couple of languages or understand where those words come from and how they have been bastardized to mean to sound more like a certain language, then you can like mishmash and reapply those things, especially when you then know the underlying languages like Latin or I don't fully know like Latin or Greek or what is it, you know, older languages. So it's you can mismatch things, which doesn't mean like, for example, I did have like a thing where I thought I would be able to speak German a lot. Well, I never thought that I could actually, like in a conversational, I can maybe ich kann das sprechen, die Deutsch, maar ich kann dat niet zo goed. Ich kann mich versprechen, ich ga fouten machen, ich ga dingen zeggen die geen woorden zijn die komen van das Nederland und woorden das zijn van andere talen, maar ik kan dat spreken. Ik kan dat een beetje. Ik heb de muziek geluisterd. Dat is from die Duits. And you know, I can go on like that, but like I don't do that in general. But then I started reading the text aloud, and that's where I suddenly realized, like, oh, like that really, like, how that is written is really weird to read compared to another language. So it's never a thing where you're like you might be able to do it. It might take a little bit more conscious effort, but there's like this. I find it a very, very problematic way of thinking about human psychology. Like, there's so many things, other things that go into what a person is doing or saying, that the Dunningkruger effect is rather damaging than it is helpful in any way, or that you're trying to misattribute someone acting under an illusory superiority, while the person themselves might actually know that they don't know every last part. I think, like, for example, I know about electronic components. I know how a computer functions. I know a lot about GPUs and CPUs and how to connect. I know how to build a computer. I don't know amplitudes and how electricity exactly flows through all those things, but that is a point of in how far do you need to know the actual thing. If I know human anatomy, which means I know how joints function and how, you know, things would move around, so I can then deduce, like, oh, all I have to do is make it mechanical, engineer it, and use those electronical components to create a thing. And then if I do need to know amplitudes and how those things, in order to make them more energy efficient, that comes into play, and only then you need to learn it. But that doesn't mean that you're under this Dunningkruger effect where you're thinking that you're no more than you do. It's just that you're maybe not even thinking about the thing that the other person is thinking about. If I say I can build a robot, and they're like, no, you're under the Dunningkruger effect, you don't know how to it's like, no, I know that I have never built a robot. That doesn't mean that I can't do it, and that I therefore, you know, it takes away this thing where, you know, if you under that assumption, Leonardo da Vinci would never become Leonardo da Vinci. People would never become what they are, or like the Wright brother would have never invented airplanes, because you would be saying like that people have to know how something works in order to make it. People can sometimes just come up with things, or try to reapply things they already know, or try to make things from not knowing. Not that doesn't constitute illusory superiority. That is like that is just knowing to live with ambiguity, and that you're just like confidently trying something out. It's a concept that is pretty damaging in its idea and concept, that it is so easily to misapply that it is likely, like, it doesn't matter for 99% of all cases where someone would attribute that to something or someone, because there's so many factors coming to that conclusion that it is almost stupid to even think about it. But yes, it is popular psychology. It is popular psychology, and you'll find a lot of stuff about it which makes people get this illusory superiority over people, that they think that someone can't do something because, oh yeah, he's Dunningkruger, like forget about that guy or that girl, or forget about this person, because it's a damaging thing. It's really wrong. It's wrong in its conception. It's wrong in it's not wrong in its idea, but it's wrong. There's like something very, very wrong about it, and it's used as a propaganda tool by institutions to try to annihilate people and keep their dominance, like for probably like which it's an iffy thing to talk about, but maybe I'll expand on this part further in the next one, because I'm currently trying to piece things together. But I also would like to talk about this stuff in different areas, so that it's like more, people don't always know what you're about or what you're doing or what you're thinking about, and so they're already coming from this biased part where I really feel it a very damaging concept, because, you know, the person themselves is already doesn't know so many factors about a certain person, that applying that effect on someone is damaging in and of itself, because they like you basically what the thing would say is like, this person might be carrying all the pieces of the puzzle to do something with them, but because they've never done it or show no sign of having learned the actual thing, therefore they are under a Dunningkruger effect, while it might just be that they're at a point or a place in where those pieces of those puzzles are going to come together and materialize into the thing that they are saying. So you know what I mean? That's like, it's a damaging concept. I don't like the idea, and I found it enough in I find from my psychology studies, I haven't done that in college or something. I've mainly come from, but I've read like a lot of literature, gone into Freud and Nietzsche and Jung and just the, of course not all of the psychology from my like there's also this attribution bias, like, oh, someone has studied 5 years of psychology, so therefore they know more than someone who hasn't. Like, I would say that most con artists are very good at psychology, like really thorough con artists, or like if you have, like, what's the guy, Mark Manson or whatever, like those people didn't always go to college for doing psychology. So I there's like that alone confirms what I am saying, that there's like this aura of superiority that you get with people who have studied something or are like well versed and have certificates, and or which was like, how many people that are in Mensa are actually people that ever invented anything great? Like that's usually there's like, I know so many people that they accredit as being really smart. Like, no, those people have a good memory. They know how to memorize something and verbalize it. They don't intelligence isn't memory. Intelligence is your processing power. It is your ability to pull ideas, pull you know, memory, so knowledge, and reapply it by processing it and creating and establishing something new and novel. It isn't, that's a common mistake, people. You have game shows that, like, oh, you have to be so smart to understand to be in this game show, and it's about the news and things that have happened. No, those are just events that happened as memory. You can be an absolute moron with a good memory and win in such a thing. That doesn't mean that you're actually smart. It's the act of processing and coming up with novel and new things that make you smart. That's why Albert Einstein is smart, and that's why a Trivial Pursuit champion is just a moron with a good memory. That's a misattribution of what intelligence means, and that is something that is very common, and people try to create this whole facade over themselves that quite often doesn't really strive with reality. And I've like there's a lot more to be said about this, but I'll leave it for here. I'll see you next time.